This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. Wab Kinew's government released its first throne speech today. It is a vision on what the new government wants to accomplish in the next year, but it also came with a warning. Fiscal pain is ahead. For more, CBC's Ian Fraze joins us now live in the newsroom. Ian, what is the throne speech promising?
In some ways, this document is a rehash of promises the NDP made during the election campaign it just won, like cutting the provincial gas tax and hiring more healthcare workers. The speech was vague. It's short on details. These things usually are. But here are some of the highlights from this year's version. The feds will help the 2,500 homes in the province using home heating oil to transition to geothermal energy. Orange Shirt Day will become a provincial statutory holiday next September. Louis Riel will receive the honorary recognition of becoming Manitoba's first premier. In response to the Israel-Hamas war, Holocaust education will be part of the curriculum in schools. Teachers will get anti-Islamophobia toolkits, and the province will seek out the voices of healthcare workers during a listening tour.
Today is a new day in our province, and people are feeling very optimistic about the future, and now it's up to our administration to deliver on that sense of optimism.
Now, Ian, as you mentioned right off the top, the Premier is warning the government might have to make tough financial choices. Why is that?
Now, Premier Wab Kinew alleging the Tories made spending commitments in their final months in power that they never budgeted for. He says capital projects like the planned $1.5 billion rebuild of the Health Sciences Centre are under review.
There may be some more challenging conversations about the nice-to-have items on the previous government's agenda as opposed to the need-to-have items.
Kinew says timelines may be adjusted, but he won't outright cancel these projects. PC leader Heather Stevenson disagrees with Kinew, saying her party budgeted for everything, and Kinew has tough choices ahead.
He's going to have to find the money from somewhere, which means he is going to be cutting programs or raising taxes on the backs of Manitobans. And a time when we're in significant affordability pressures right now for Manitobans, neither one of those is ideal for Manitobans.
Ian, what else did Kinew reveal?
Marjorie.
Thank you very much, Ian. As Ian mentioned there, Kinew also revealed that the Universal Nutrition Program in schools will be ready for the next fall. That is CBC's Ian Fraze reporting live tonight. Well, an important Winnipeg traffic artery was closed down today, severing a connection between the north end and the inner city. CBC's Bartley Kivas tells us about the sudden closure of the Arlington Bridge.
It's fun to race up the steep face of Arlington Bridge, but you won't be able to do that for a while, if ever. The city shuttered the bridge today as a precautionary measure. An engineering study found too much corrosion in the steel truss bridge built more than 110 years ago.
This bridge was completed in 1911, and it's been fixed up several times to extend its life. The city says it can no longer keep doing that.
The deterioration is accelerating. It's widespread.
Winnipeg Engineering Director Brad Nierick says the bridge is at no risk of falling apart, but it's still too risky for vehicles to use, and annual repairs are no longer even possible.
There's bridge bearings that keep the bridge, they allow the bridge to expand and contract, and those are all seized up now. So what's happening is that additional forces are working their way through the structure, and those have to be mitigated.
Even closed to traffic, Arlington Bridge requires maintenance to protect the rail lines below it. A second part of the engineering study will determine whether the bridge will ever allow cars again. The city has been talking about replacing the bridge since 2011. Engineers presented a plan for a new 3-lane span in 2018, but that would have cost $330 million, and the city didn't have the money.
It always seems like, the north end always gets the short end of the stick when it comes to infrastructure.
While the city kicked the Arlington Bridge can down the road, it found money for underpasses at Waverly Street and Plessy Road. The new mayor's main priority is widening Kenaston Boulevard, not rebuilding Arlington Bridge.
The mayor chooses and wants to ignore it because he wants his widening of Kenaston, right? So this is always the competing interest.
Councillors Santos and Eady say they know the bridge closure is irritating. They're asking for patience until February, when the final fate of Arlington Bridge should be known. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A Winnipeg couple who gave up their vehicle a little over a year ago are throwing in the towel on their car-free lifestyle. They say problems with Winnipeg Transit have been the biggest obstacle to reducing their carbon footprint. CBC's Emily Brass has their story.
Do you think we should bring the stroller?
Mornings are busy for Ryan Palmquist and Megan Waters. The couple has 3 kids, including a baby. They recently bought a minivan, but just weeks ago, they were car-free.
We want to do our part to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We want to do our part to show that even in Winnipeg, you don't have to depend on a car for every single thing you do.
The couple says the biggest barrier to that goal is Winnipeg Transit.
It was dicey in that the bus would often come late or not at all sometimes. And we're standing there, 40 minutes sometimes with our 2 kids at the side of the road.
They say the long waits made their young boys restless, dashing around icy sidewalks next to a 60-kilometer-an-hour road.
It was the constant vigilance that you're just like, no, step back, step back, step back. There's lots of cars here.
They say they might have waited in a bus shelter, but they're often occupied.
There's meth pipes, there's broken beer bottles, there's
garbage, needles.
or people living in them who are basically it's their home.
Bug 'em.
The family says they feel privileged to afford a minivan, something many Winnipeg Transit users cannot. Winnipeggers who take the bus make considerably less than most residents, earning an average of $36,000 a year. That's nearly $14,000 less than Winnipeggers overall. They also bring in much less than the national average for transit users of $49,000, suggesting far fewer higher earners take the bus in Winnipeg than in other parts of Canada.
There are some people that cannot afford a private vehicle, and so they will continue to buy bus passes. They're arriving to their destination stressed, perpetually late, and it's as if our city doesn't care about their punctuality.
I think that's nonsense.
Transit Chair Janice Lukes blames a shortage of bus drivers for problems with reliability. She says big changes are coming by June 2025.
We have to make transit more appealing. So we've got electric buses that we're bringing on board. We're changing to high frequency. And if it's dependable, reliable, frequent, and safe, it will be more cost effective for people than taking their car.
Can you hold her for a sec?
Until then, Palmquist and Waters will get around other ways than the bus.
It wouldn't take much to make it work for us. If we had that 10-minute frequency, if we had those proper connecting routes, then yeah, we'd go right back to it in a heartbeat.
And then off we go.
Emily Brass, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, speaking of transit, more frequent bus service could be coming sooner than we thought. Mentioned there by Councillor Janice Lukes. The city has a plan to speed up the implementation of its transit master plan. But CBC's Cameron McLean reports there are many challenges to overcome, including a shortage of drivers.
Shorter waits for buses. That's the goal of the city's transit master plan. And now the city says it can start work on that plan as early as June 2025 instead of 2026 at no extra cost.
That's what we're hearing from the public is they want high-frequency transit. They want it fast.
The new network will be based on a series of spines along major corridors with smaller feeder routes to connect them. The city says people will be able to catch a bus, often without needing to check a schedule first. Public Works Chair Janice Lukes says the change will be massive.
The entire city, all the routes will change. The plan is for spring of 2025.
Doing that will be difficult. The city is facing a shortage of drivers. Right now, more than a quarter of all drivers are eligible for retirement. In 5 years, that will increase to almost half. Chris Scott is the president of the transit union.
We can redesign the routes all we want, but the service levels needed to serve the demand of the public can't be met without those employees.
The city has also had trouble recruiting and retaining drivers. One concern is safety. The city is currently testing out 2 models of shields to protect drivers. The city also has a plan to equip transit supervisors with the overdose prevention drug naloxone, something harm reduction advocates have called for.
It normalizes the use of naloxone, but it also has people talking about substance use in more productive, kind of healthy ways.
The Public Works Committee passed the proposal to accelerate the transit master plan today. That will move on to council next month. The transit union is also voting on a new contract this week. The results will be announced on Friday. The city hopes this latest offer will get more drivers onto buses so that people don't have to wait at bus stops for quite so long. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Winnipeg police are investigating 2 early morning homicides. Officers were called just before 2 this morning to the 400 block of Burroughs about a seriously injured woman. The 20-year-old was rushed to hospital in critical condition but later died. The homicide unit is also investigating after the Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service found a man dead in the 100 block of Selkirk just before 5 this morning. Police are asking anyone with information to call investigators or Crime Stoppers. Winnipeg pest control experts are bracing for more cockroaches to start spreading in the city. 2 exterminators CBC spoke with say the number of sites they've attended to treat, the problem has spiked. One pest control business owner says his staff have treated more than 2,000 locations this year for cockroach infestations, roughly double the amount from last year. Poulin's Pest Control went to more than 3,000 sites to treat cockroach infestations this year, about 500 more than last year. The owner of Poulin says the problem is worse than bed bug infestations in the city and are more difficult to get rid of. Exterminators say Winnipeggers should use insect tape to catch any cockroaches in their home or business before calling in a professional. A disciplinary hearing for the former head of the University of Manitoba's law school continued today. Jonathan Black Branch is accused of breach of integrity by the Law Society of Manitoba. CBC's Bryce Hoy has more.
A former University of Manitoba Law School financial assistant spoke today at the Law Society offices in Winnipeg. She says it was in 2019 that she first noticed red flags around the expenses of Jonathan Black Branch. The former law school dean is accused of breach of integrity for allegedly misusing university funds. Shanice Roberts was financial assistant for the law school. She told the disciplinary panel today that she was asked to set up a Swiss bank account for a foundation of his. There were also issues with charges to a company called BT Internet. Robert also said there were unconventional payments to a professional development program. She says it didn't add up. When she tried to get information to clear things up with higher-ups, she says she was told to stop asking questions. She says she took that as a threat. Black Branch suddenly went on leave in May 2020. The society alleges Black Branch misspent close to $500,000 from an endowment fund. Black Branch wasn't at the hearing today. If found guilty, he could be reprimanded or face disbarment. The hearings continue tomorrow. Bryce Hoy, CBC News, Winnipeg.
CBC weather specialist Riley Lachuk joins us now. And Riley, it was a little bit windy in the city earlier today, but nothing compared to what folks up in the north are experiencing.
Yes, very windy conditions across parts of northern Manitoba. In fact, we've had a wind warning in place, for well over a day now for the Hudson Bay coast. And that warning still in place this evening. Churchill, under this wind warning, we could see winds up to 90 kilometers an hour gusting over the Hudson Bay coast. So areas like York over toward the Churchill region, looking at these strong winds through the night again tonight and into the day tomorrow again before we start to see things dropping off. So right now in Churchill, winds out of the west at 56, gusting to 80. We've seen gusts around the 80 kilometer mark throughout the day today. So this is all because we have an area of low pressure over Hudson Bay that brought some snow to parts of Nunavut territory through the day yesterday into today. Counterclockwise rotation bringing that westerly and northwesterly flow as we head into the evening tonight. So winds as we head into the day tomorrow still gusting upwards of 65, 70 through the afternoon before we start to see things dying down a little bit as we get into the later part of Thursday and into Friday. So a couple of windy days yet to come for parts of northern Manitoba. For us in the south, sunshine today, nice sunny day, just some passing clouds as we got through the afternoon today. But overall, it was a pretty pleasant day, save for the wind. It was a little bit on the gusty side, especially through the afternoon. North winds too, really making things seem a lot chillier than it was outside. So as we get into the day tomorrow, you can see just some passing cloud once again. Slim chance of maybe some lake effect flurries through the day tomorrow as we head into the day on Thursday. Even we're looking at sunny skies, high pressure sets in, sunnier skies, but the trade-off is it's going to be a lot cooler and a lot closer to normal in terms of temperature for this time of the year. Still seeing that low struggling to move out of the Hudson Bay coast as we even head into Friday. So wind still could be an issue for parts of northern Manitoba as we head into the day on Thursday into Friday. So here's what our upper level atmosphere looks like. You can see as we head into the day on Wednesday and Thursday, we see the jet stream really shifting around. A ridge of high pressure starts to build in. That cools our temperatures, and we're going to be returning to much more normal conditions as we head into the later part of this week and into the weekend. Looking right now, -4 in Winnipeg. Winds very light. We've seen the winds really diminish as we head into the late afternoon here. Just out of the southwest at 7. -4 tonight, a few clouds, winds northwest light as we head through the night tonight into tomorrow. Then we start to see sunnier skies, -3 first thing in the morning and a -1 under a mainly sunny sky in the afternoon. Watch those north winds again tomorrow. Could be a little bit on the gusty side, especially through the afternoon. -8 for Thursday, breezy as we head into Friday as well with a high of -6. I don't think we've seen temperatures like these for daytime highs probably since last spring or probably. Chance of some flurries on Saturday, March, -1. And yeah, no temperatures above the freezing mark in the 7-day forecast either. I'll have that coming up a bit later.
Thank you very much, Riley. A Winnipeg senior says hackers stole $11,000 after taking control of his MyMTS email account, something he didn't discover until after the money was gone. The I-Team's Caroline Bargout has more.
They used my name on a lot of them, but then they also put some of their own name on them, too.
Last December, hackers stole nearly $11,000 from Dennis Popkis after they got into his email account. They ordered things on Amazon, DoorDash, and PayPal, and changed the shipping address to one in Edmonton. The 76-year-old was having trouble getting into his messages and had no idea why, so he called Bell MTS tech support.
He says, someone has gotten into your account ahead of you and changed your answers. And I said, what?
Popkis says what's worse is this is the second time someone got into his account, and Bell MTS assured him it would never happen again.
Bell said, sorry, this will never happen again. We've marked your file, and a year and 4 months later, not only they got the mother load, they got the SIM card changed.
Bell MTS says hackers were logged into Popkis' account when they ordered a new SIM card, but didn't say how they managed to get in.
According to court documents obtained by CBC News, last December, Winnipeg police said they were investigating at least 20 fraud cases in which hackers got into a victim's Bell MTS email account, which allowed them access to their financial accounts. Police also wrote that MTS emails have weaker security features which allow suspects to easily compromise them.
Bell MTS says email services, regardless of provider, can be hacked in a variety of ways, such as phishing campaigns, social engineering, password reuse across accounts, and other methods, which often have no bearing on the email platform itself. The company spokesperson also said that once they were alerted to the suspected fraud in Popkis' case, Bell MTS improved a number of threat detection defenses, like password reset and email filtering protocols to help make our customer and business email accounts more secure. This cybersecurity expert says no matter what email service provider you use, you can take steps to better protect yourself, especially when it comes to answering security questions.
What's your mother's maiden name? What school did you go to? So the answer to those security questions should actually not be the answer for you. They should be a complex passphrase. They should have the same characteristics, be very long and have special characters and numbers in them as well.
He says having strong passwords and answers to security questions is your best defense against hackers.
If you got an online account, look at it. If you can't get into that account, Don't wait for the grandson to help you fix it on the weekend. Phone, text support, they're there to help you to figure it out.
Popka says the longer hackers are in your accounts, the more money they can steal. Caroline Bargood, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, one of Canada's most recognizable astronauts is making a stop in Winnipeg tonight. Chris Hadfield was the first Canadian to perform a spacewalk and was the commander of the International Space Station. He is in Winnipeg tonight promoting his latest novel, The Defector. Colonel Chris Hadfield, it is so nice to have you on the program tonight.
Thanks, Riley. Nice to be talking with you.
So most Canadians, of course, recognize you from your time at the International Space Station. But you're in Winnipeg for a book signing tonight on your second thriller called The Defector. 30 seconds or less, what is it about?
It is action thriller set in the height of the Cold War. It's the second book in the series, and it goes from high in the skies over Israel at the start of the Yom Kippur War out to the secret desert of Nevada, where all sorts of things take place at a real but actually quite famous spot called Area 51. And it leads to an action-packed conclusion over the nuclear test range of Nevada. So it's nothing but nonstop thrills and intrigue and spies and lies. And it's been a bestseller since the day it came out and the #1 selling book in the country.
So The Defector is fiction, but how much do you lean on your own experiences as a fighter pilot in the storytelling?
Well, I think it's 50% fact. And over half the characters in Defector are real people. So it's woven in amongst reality. And for me, I find that much more compelling when I'm reading a fiction book where I can't tell what's real and what's made up. But obviously my own background as one of Canada's fighter pilots during the Cold War, I did the very first CF-18 intercept of a Soviet bomber off the coast of Canada. And so there's my time as one of Canada's fighter pilots and then as a test pilot. And all of that, of course, helps put me in a position to write a book like The Defector with a real, I think, background of deep personal expertise and authenticity.
You're one of the most accomplished astronauts and fighter pilots in the world. What is it about being a fighter pilot specifically that you enjoyed?
It's incredibly challenging. It's an important role for the country. We only trust a very few people to do it. I love things in life that kind of push me to the limit of what I'm capable, where I have to summon the very best of myself. I have to train for years and then be required to perform in something that has a lot of consequence. And that combination of doing something really worthwhile, doing something that serves a national need, but also that pulls the very best from me, I find that a really interesting way to go through life. And it led to being a test pilot and to being an astronaut and all the things that I've done since then.
You know, reading The Defectors, there's something to take away from that book to relate to, say, what we're seeing overseas in several countries today.
Yeah, we've been living in quite a lovely period of relative peace since the fall of the Iron Curtain back in the early 90s. But it's unusual in human history. We're much more, unfortunately, a warring species, just historically. And as much as we would prefer to be peaceful, it's not always our nature. And so fighting against those devils within us, how can we manage to live a peaceful life? How can we build structures that protect us so the vast majority of the people don't have to have that inflicted on their lives? I think it's worth thinking about. And whether you're reading fact or whether you're reading fiction, I think it's good to get a clear understanding of both the realities of the world, but also the possibilities that exist.
Now, you released your first book 10 years ago now about your time in space. What have you learned since then about the transition from astronaut to author, of all things?
Well, I help run several businesses, and I run a big international technology incubator, and I've made a bunch of television series. But if you had just flown in space for half a year, Riley, and come down on your parachute and thumped into the world and rolled to a stop, and you sort of emerge blinking out into the light, what would you do with that experience? And so for me, trying to find myriad ways to share it, both visiting schools, talking about it, playing music, writing nonfiction, and I've written nonfiction books, but also you can get into the real depth of human reaction and visceral emotion when you write fiction. And so it can stay very close to fact, but it really gives me the freedom as an author to let everybody know what it truly feels like to be a fighter pilot, to be a test pilot, or to fly a spaceship.
So the Defector is out now. What comes next for you? Could we possibly see something Mars related on the horizon?
Well, the first book in this series is called The Apollo Murders. It's being made into an 8-part television series by Sylvester Stallone's production house. Sylvester loved The Apollo Murders, and so I think there's a lot of television on the horizon. And then the next book in the Apollo Murders series, I've already begun working on it. I've done a lot of the research, and I've actually started writing the plot of the next book in this series. But you'll have to wait to see where it goes.
Colonel Chris Hadfield, you are at McNally Robinson tonight starting at 7 o'clock. Thank you again for taking some time to chat with us tonight.
Thanks, and I hope you enjoy reading the book, Riley. Nice to chat with you.
For sure.
Still ahead, a deal to reach some hostages is closer than ever as the call for a ceasefire grows louder. That story is coming up. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Israeli and Hamas officials say they may be close to a deal to release some of the hostages taken by Hamas during the October 7th attack. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his cabinet were meeting to discuss the proposal. Sasha Petrusik has the details.
On the streets of Tel Aviv tonight, families of Israeli hostages, more than 230 of them, gathered in hope, waiting for news of a deal that would see some released. I'm waiting for that phone call, says the grandmother of a 13-year-old girl being held. Nothing yet, as negotiations involving Qatar and the U.S. continue. We are making progress, says Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Leaders of the militant group Hamas say a deal is close. One that would see women and children hostages released in exchange for Palestinians now in Israeli jails, he says. Leaked information suggests 50 hostages would be traded for 150 women and young prisoners during a 4-day truce. In the meantime, the fighting goes on in Gaza. Israeli airstrikes on densely populated refugee camps leave a dusty trail of rubble. Scores of dead and injured. And plenty of grief. Urgency, too, at 3 hospitals in northern Gaza, which are being evacuated with the help of the WHO because of Israeli military strikes and the threat of more.
But again, the important point is where to. There's no safe space.
In the south of Gaza, people scramble for scarce water deliveries. And amid the threat of regular Israeli airstrikes and shortages of food, the displaced survive on lentil soup. We have no life, she says, no food, no drink, nothing. Even the rain is pouring on us.
So we have then, on top of the mortars and the bombs, a perfect storm for disease, for the spread of disease. It's a perfect storm for tragedy.
And that in the south of Gaza, what's supposed to be the safest place to be in this conflict zone. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Toronto.
Back here at home, the federal government has unveiled its latest plans for the Canadian economy. Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland delivered the fall economic statement in the House of Commons today. The government is working to balance programs to build more homes, make life more affordable, and bring down inflation. CBC's Rafi Boudjikanian has the details.
Chrystia Freeland is trying to tackle affordability issues while keeping an eye on the bottom line. Beneath that tightrope, a worsening economy ahead.
Our economic plan is focused on building an economy that works for everyone, with good jobs that people can count on.
The new spending outlined today is modest, $21 billion over 6 years, most of it aimed at housing and previously announced programs such as heat pumps and the removal of the GST for rental construction units. It is a sign the government doesn't want to add to the inflationary fire.
I am today announcing new measures through our economic plan to build thousands upon thousands upon thousands of new homes across the country.
There is a $15 billion loan program starting in 2025 to kickstart construction of new rental housing units. And the government also intends to cut down on red tape, allowing construction workers to move across the country more easily to build these new homes.
They recognize the scale of this problem is enormous, it's historic.
But for this observer of the economy, these are measures that will barely start addressing the housing shortage in the country.
This is not something that's going to get solved in this fiscal update or even in the next budget. We'll be talking about this in the next election and probably the next election after that.
An issue for the official opposition for months, engaging again today as the ink was still drying on the economic statement.
It now takes 25 years to save up for a down payment in Toronto. You used to pay off a mortgage in that time. Since this Prime Minister has taken office, families have stretched out the terms of their mortgages to 90 years.
Affordability is likely to be on Canadians' minds next time they're at the ballot box as they weigh how well the government has balanced spending with restraint in the middle of global uncertainty. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
Canada's inflation rate dipped again in October. Headline inflation, also known as the Consumer Price Index, came in at 3.1%. That's down from 3.8% in September. The slowdown was led by gasoline prices, which were down more than 6% in October. Increases in grocery prices have also slowed, but still came in at more than 5%. Shelter costs remain a key factor in the high cost of living. Rents rose more than 8% in October, compared to just over 7% in September. Mortgage interest costs are up more than 30% compared to a year ago. Rescue workers in northern India are making progress as they try to reach 41 workers who are trapped in a tunnel. The construction workers have been stuck there since November 12th after a landslide caused a section of the 4.5-kilometer tunnel to collapse. Crews have established video contact with the workers, and they've been able to send oxygen, food, and medicine through a pipe. A rescue team is drilling an evacuation tunnel about 100 meters long in hopes that the crew can crawl out of it. Well, still ahead, a western city may have a solution to providing shelter to the homeless during the winter season. That story is coming up. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. The cost of housing is a national concern, and for some, it's about just getting a roof over their heads. Small wooden structures have been popping up at a homeless encampment in one BC community. Volunteer builders say with winter weather setting in, there's no time to waste, but they're facing roadblocks. Kate Partridge has the story.
Volunteers are working in snow and gusting winds to finish up shelters for residents of Prince George's Moccasin Flats encampment. Brad Gustafson is a volunteer and a contractor by trade. He's designed the shelters, tall enough to stand in and small enough to heat.
They're 8 feet wide by 8 feet deep, or 8 feet long, with a slight slope to it, and with a tin roof. And they just are big enough for 2 people to have a bed in.
Mayor Simon Yu campaigned on building emergency shelters for the unhoused. He told CBC News it's been harder than he thought.
The problem on the street, that for the scale of it, we have not facing that as a society together for a long time.
And then last week, the city of Prince George issued notices saying building and occupying these structures is illegal. Nikita Tiji has spent winters in a tent before. This year, she's in one of these tiny homes with her partner.
It's better. It's a lot better than a tent, for sure. People are gonna freeze out here, man. Like, they should be getting us lumber and stuff.
The city told CBC News there are no plans to enforce the orders, and volunteers say they aren't stopping. Gustafson says there is still a wait list of about 60 people hoping for shelter this winter. Kate Partridge, CBC News, Prince George.
Fears of an impending volcanic eruption have people in a small Icelandic town clearing out their belongings, and construction crews are hustling to build barriers to divert potential lava flows. Truckloads of gravel are being dumped around a nearby geothermal energy plant. It provides power to much of the area about 40 kilometers southwest of Reykjavik. Officials are warning there may be less than 30 minutes warning before an eruption. The area has been largely empty for the past 2 weeks. Residents and business owners have been getting limited access to collect their belongings and move merchandise. The travel rush is ramping up south of the border ahead of American Thanksgiving on Thursday. But severe weather threatens to deal a blow to holiday plans for millions of people. U.S. Thanksgiving is traditionally one of the year's busiest travel days. Airports across the country are preparing for record traffic well above pre-pandemic levels. Extra airspace is being opened up in anticipation in a rare move usually reserved only for the U.S. military. But stormy weather is threatening to complicate travel plans in the air and on the ground. Rain, snow, and severe thunderstorms are expected to blast huge parts of the country.
Weather Update is brought to you by the Art and Beauty of the National Ballet of Ukraine. January 29th at the Burton Cummings Theatre. Tickets at nationalballetukraine.com.
Okay, Riley, while they're bracing for some dicey weather south of the border, I mean, we're bracing for, you've been forecasting this for days now, the normals, the reality of what the typical weather should be like in November here.
Yeah, speaking of typical weather and the averages, I guess, it has been quite a bit wetter than normal this fall as well. You know, I've been hearing from some people who say that their sump pumps are still going off.
Oh,
and
wow.
Still trying to keep water out of the basements. And so I did look at some of the numbers, and yeah, it has been quite a bit wetter than usual for this fall. We can take a look at some of the numbers here. This takes us through October and November. So normally October, 37, almost 38 millimeters of precipitation, rain, snow combined. 25 for November. Here are the numbers. October, 202% of normal precipitation. So a very wet month in October. November on track to being quite wet as well, 126% of normal. So yeah, if you think it's been a wet fall, you're not alone. It has been, according to the numbers anyway, quite wet through the fall here in Manitoba. Taking a look at our current temperatures, so we are sitting at -2 in Brandon right now. This still warmer than a normal daytime high for this time of the year. -4 in Winnipeg at the airport right now. That is our normal daytime high for this time of the year. And temperatures like these we'll see through the afternoons come later on this week. We'll talk about that in your 7-day forecast. Cooler conditions and still very windy conditions along the Hudson Bay coast. So tonight, a little bit of passing cloud, but otherwise we're looking at partly cloudy skies in northwestern Ontario, -5 to -7 overnight tonight. Much the same for southeastern Manitoba as well. -4s, -5s, partly cloudy skies. We'll see winds diminish as we get into the night tonight and into the morning tomorrow. Same for southwest Manitoba. We'll see diminishing winds tonight, but we could see some gusty conditions, especially in the early morning. Brandon -4, Dauphin -6 tonight under a partly cloudy sky. And then we do have a chance of maybe some flurries through Lynn Lake and Flin Flon. Greatest chance through northeastern Manitoba as a result of that area of low pressure, which is going to bring gusty conditions and snowy conditions to the Hudson Bay coast and Churchill through the night tonight. Tomorrow, those winds still lingering in northern Manitoba, winds gusting up to 90 in Churchill again tomorrow afternoon. -12 in Flin Flon, -8 in the Pas. -1 in Brandon, mainly sunny skies across the south tomorrow. Temperatures at the freezing mark in Morden, Winkler as well. Southeastern Manitoba temperatures hovering around the freezing mark, -1 in Winnipeg by mid-afternoon tomorrow. And into northwestern Ontario, we're looking at mainly cloudy skies, some passing clouds, but we'll see sunny breaks through the afternoon. -1s for Kenora and Dryden, and Marge, a 3-degree high in Fort Francis. I'll have your cooler 7-day forecast coming up at the end of the show.
All right. Thanks a lot, Riley.
You're welcome.
A local senior biking group continues to see interest skyrocket and are moving to winter activities as the weather gets colder. That story is coming up. Stay with us. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. As we get older, some of us might forget how to play, but one woman is determined to bring that feeling back for older women. Sarah Gravel McKenzie started a 55-plus biking group for women earlier this year. Now that the summer biking season has passed, she's looking to the winter months ahead, and the group is taking on some new activities. CBC's Marcy Marcusa spoke with Gravel McKenzie this morning on Information Radio. Here's a portion of that interview.
So this idea to take this further into the winter months, can you elaborate on what you were thinking around that?
Well, what happened is our season was ending. A lot of us were feeling sad about, well, we're not going to see each other till next May. And so I sort of thought, myself and Rose McDonald, who's the co-founder, we said, why not do hiking? Why not stay active with these lovely ladies 12 months of the year? So we started a fall hiking series, and we hike Mondays and Thursdays at 1 o'clock. And we hike for about an hour to an hour and a half. And then when winter comes, we've partnered up with the Winnipeg Trails Association, and they're going to help us set up some skiing clinics. So we'll go out a couple of times a month with them, and they bring the skis and the instructors. So that's going to be great. And we've partnered up with the RM of East St. Paul, and we'll have access to their snowshoes. So they'll be hiking, tobogganing, snowshoeing, skiing, and twice a week we'll get outside together.
So I should be clear here. When I was cycling won't necessarily continue. You're not doing a winter bike circuit, but the winter activities with this group and inviting women will continue.
Right. And what we're going to try and do is set up a day to take out of rentals of fat bikes.
Oh, fun.
And then we thought also maybe ice bikes. Try that too. So
what does it do for yourself, but also for the women in the group? What does that connection mean? As you said, you kind of had that moment where you thought, oh, we won't have a reason to stay connected. We might not see each other. What does it mean to your life?
I mean, it's huge. Before doing this group, I did everything sort of a solitary bike ride and that. And now that I've made all these wonderful connections with women, for me as well as for all of them, we just talk about how we look forward to being together. And I think the theme that really developed through cycling it wasn't just a social connection, it was the mental health piece. That everybody just felt so uplifted by being together and being women of the same age group. We've all had similar experiences, and we could relate to it, whether it was a loss of a parent or a loss of a spouse, right? And we just intuitively understood each other, and I think that's made such a difference for all of us.
What's the range of ages of women that you've got in your group, roughly?
Yeah, 55 to join, and the oldest is 72. I'll be 70 this year, so I'm like almost at the oldest there, but and we're all pretty active, right? We're all out there and we're giving it our best and trying new things and
what is it something now that you've kind of done this and it's working and now you're going to go through the winter that you see sort of becoming a long-term thing in your life and in Winnipeg?
I do. I think it's going to keep growing, and that's certainly the goal that both Rose and I have. We want it to be, I mean, this is the first year and it's been a phenomenal year, but I want it to have sustainability, and I think that's where the partnerships come in with Winnipeg Trails and the RM of East St. Paul. Manitoba Parks are hosting some activities this winter for us. So I think when you have partnerships, you sort of ensure that the life of this program will keep going, whether, I'm around to keep doing it, but that's also the reality, right? I just want it. Everyone's going to keep aging, and I want people to keep having a place to come to.
There's an interesting thing happens with women, I find, at middle age. I'm about to be 50. So I find when you go through menopause, and I don't mind sharing because like this, we should talk way more about this. This is medical, it's our bodies. This is
sure should.
Every woman, let's talk more about it.
Yep.
When you do go through menopause, and I've just sort of entered menopause myself, but everything about how I feel physically, mentally, like I almost feel like I've been rebooted in a way. It's different for every woman. But part of the thing around physical activity and connection is, I don't know, I just found it's been so critically important for me to keep on moving, being active, but to be around other women and to share what those experiences were like in our body and as it relates to mental health and wellness. So this group, that must be an amazing place for women to connect, as you said, for all kinds of reasons.
Tons of different reasons, right? And it is just, I mean, the goal of it, and I promote this all the time, is the number one thing is to have fun. Because if we're having fun, we're going to keep coming back. And then two, to be supportive, to be encouraging each other, and kindness.
That was Marcy Marcusa speaking with Sarah Gravel-McKenzie on Information Radio. You can now watch the full interviews live on CBC Manitoba's YouTube channel. Well, still ahead, Riley Lachuk is back with your 7-day forecast. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News.
Well, we're entering a period where our temperatures are going to be a lot more seasonal for this time of the year, and that starts Thursday. 1 degree tomorrow, mainly sunny skies for Winnipeg. Then look at this, -8 to -6, breezy through the balance of the work week. We do have a chance we could see maybe some flurries through Saturday, Sunday, and temperatures really staying at or below seasonal for this time of the year. So yeah, I think it's time to pull out the winter coats. Yeah. So Marge, how does one drive a pickup truck through a gap that might be a bit too narrow for it?
Well, we're about to find out, Riley, in today's Daily Lift. Here's the new Guinness record holder, Paul Swift, showing us how, by driving on 2 wheels, he managed to squeeze his truck through an 88-centimeter gap. Across the globe, other talented people were also busy in the lead up to Friday's Guinness World Records Day.
So from the new record for the highest backflip pogo stick jump at just over 3 meters to the most number of consecutive full twist back somersaults.
Wow.
That's 11 in a row, by the way, if you're wondering about trying to break that record yourself.
That is impressive.
It's impressive, you're right.
Wow. Good for them. Congratulations.
Yeah. It has been so nice having you here the last week, Marge.
Oh, Riley, it's been so nice having you here, too. Have a blast. And we'll have a blast with you again at 11 o'clock.